the Global Energy Leaders Podcast, episode 87.
Welcome to the Global Energy Leaders Podcast, powered by R Squared Global.
Welcome to another edition of the Global Energy Leaders Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Ray. So good to have you. And today we are going to Kenya. We're speaking with Samir Ibrahim from SunCulture, and they have a really, really neat thing going on over there. They are bringing solar units to farmers. And when you hear what they're doing, I think you'll love it. If you're a distributor looking to get into Eastern Africa or in Eastern Africa, this might be the episode for you. If you're just curious about what's going on in Kenya and Africa and power and how all that's working, fascinating stuff that Samir and his group are doing. Real quick background on Samir. He's the CEO and co-founder of SunCulture, which is headquartered in Kenya. And they sell affordable solar-powered irrigation solutions to small farmers. It's quite fascinating stuff. You'll hear some of the numbers and how it works more in the podcast. Samir has been all over the place. Most notably, at least for our show, is the Forbes 30 Under 30, as we are going through that list. And I don't know how far along we are, but it feels like we've gotten almost all of the folks on here. But regardless, be sure to check out their stuff. We'll link to all of Samir's information and SunCulture's information in the show notes, which you can find, of course, at globalenergymedia.com. Question of the day. When you hear about what Samir is doing and other folks that we have brought onto the show, does it make you feel better about being an energy professional? Would love to hear your thoughts. Ryan at globalenergymedia.com. That's Ryan at globalenergymedia.com. Without further ado, here is Samir Ibrahim. Well, Samir, it feels like we're working our way through the Forbes 30 Under 30 list, and I've really enjoyed it, talking to a lot of folks who've accomplished a lot. So congratulations to you, first off, and tell me what got you interested in energy?
Well, thank you so much, and first of all, and I'm happy to be on the podcast with you. What got me interested in energy? It's interesting because I didn't have an energy background or an agriculture background before starting SunCulture. I just sort of had this drive to use the opportunities that I had to make the world a better place, for lack of better words. My family is from East Africa, so I've always had this emotional drive to helping make the place where they came from better. So when my co-founder and our CTO, Charlie, approached me with the idea for SunCulture, I was hooked. So I got into energy by request by Charlie, but I also now view energy and agriculture and access to water as things that are essential to development.
Absolutely. And just for the listeners' benefit, you are based out of Kenya. Do you work anywhere outside of Kenya, or is it just Kenya mainly?
So we're based out of Kenya. Our products are available in almost 8 countries in East Africa. Okay. And for the next 12 months, we're very focused on distribution. So if there are any interesting distributors listening to this, we're looking to distribute across the continent in the next 12 months.
Absolutely. Well, I want to circle back on to something you said a minute ago. You said energy, water, and agriculture. And I think for energy professionals, we can take a lot of pride in our work if we realize that what we do is one of the essential things for life. Now, obviously, if you're talking about agriculture and water, you're kind of touching everything there. But energy, just alone, it's one of those things that, we kind of get caught up in the moment. We don't really realize the implications of it. But especially where you're at in East Africa, in Kenya, bringing power to people, it's revolutionary in ways here stateside that we don't really take. We may take for granted, And so, kind of walk us through the process of bringing power to Kenya, to Eastern Africa, and how that's just changed the economy there, the lifestyle of the people there, and what are some of the things that maybe you've observed that maybe you wouldn't have thought would have happened?
Yeah, it's very. I mean, I've had a lot of friends who work in energy outside of East Africa, mainly in the U.S. and Europe, come to Kenya and just their minds have been blown. We think of energy in a way that's different than I used to think about energy in the U.S. Over here, energy has to be a conduit to many more things that aren't already available. So not only are you thinking about getting energy to people, but you have to think about how do you give people energy, how do you give people power, and then how do you convert that power into something that's productive? So instead of just saying, I'm going to give you power and that's it, as a business, you have to think of everything from A to Z. Now, when you think about manufacturing energy products, you have to think about distributing energy products, you have to think about marketing and selling energy products and financing energy products, not only just bringing energy to people. So it's more of a whole, you have to think about this as more of a holistic solution as opposed to thinking about it as just a one-step process. which it becomes complicated, especially in areas where 2/3 of the population is off-grid, 2/3 of the population live in rural areas, 2/3 of the population are smallholder farmers, and most of these people are the same. So you have to think about how do you provide them with access to energy in a way that enhances every different part of their lives. And it's a challenge, but it's a very meaningful challenge that we're excited to address every day.
Yeah, and I would think that if you look at it in a long-term, kind of standpoint, eventually what's going to happen is in Eastern Africa, there will be manufacturing jobs created by what you guys are doing, and along with other companies, and so there'll be all kinds of jobs that will stem out from what you guys are doing today, and that you probably can't even visualize exactly how that will look. But like you say, you got 2/3 of the population that doesn't have power, that may or may not be trained, may or may not be educated, and as you guys start to bring power, especially to these farmers, they begin to be more efficient in their crops, and this the whole ethos of the country will eventually change. Now, it's not overnight. That's one thing that I think we kind of lose. But let's talk about the farmers specifically. Obviously, getting people food is a big deal. I mean, here in the U.S., we go to Walmart and there's food everywhere. But you get outside the U.S., right? And in some countries, I don't know about Kenya particularly, but some countries having access to food is not something that's just there's not Walmarts everywhere. So, what has been the impact on the farmers with y'all's product?
Yeah, so let me give you a sense of the type of customer we're addressing first, so you can visualize what they look like. So most of the population lives off-grid in rural areas, and they're farmers. So imagine a farm, about an acre, with a small house on it, a farmer and her husband or his wife and 3 kids, and they live on their farm. And to make money, they rely on the rain. So they practice rain-fed agriculture, meaning they're just one bad growing season away from financial ruin. They grow maize and they sell it to their neighbors, and they're making under $1,000 per acre per year. And the reason that they're making so little money is because they don't have the products, the knowledge, or the financing needed to irrigate to grow high value crops. So at SunCulture, we provide them with just that. We provide them with the products, so solar powered water pumps and micro irrigation. We provide them with the ongoing knowledge and support, and we finance them for them to afford our products and services. And our farmers go from making under $1,000 per acre per year to making an average of $14,000 per acre per year. So not only are we providing them access with high quality nutritious food, but we're providing them with access to additional disposable income that they can just use for other things. And most of our farmers use their additional income for school fees and clothes and health bills. So the effects are dramatic, and that impact is what wakes us up every morning.
Let me just state those numbers again to make sure I heard them right. You said $1,000 per acre to $14,000 per acre. Is that what I heard?
That's correct, Ryan.
That's insane. That's just an insane amount of profit increase, right? And then obviously, so you say, okay, well, they go from 1 to 14, and they got to pay for the solar system. But I'm guessing, I'm gonna go on a limb here and say, with that kind of profit margin increase, they can happily pay for what your product is, and as you mentioned, they begin to pay for other stuff. And if as this trend continues, I'm sure this is going to also have an effect on the job market there, where a farmer might say, you know what, I'm getting a little old, but I got this solar system in place now. I'm gonna go hire someone, or I can pay my son to run the farm for me.
You're exactly right about that. The farmers can pay back for the cost of the system in under a year. We're also financing the system. We're so confident in our farmers' ability to generate so much additional income that we're financing over time. We're telling them to only pay us a little bit of money during the growing season and pay us more when they harvest, because they make so much money when they harvest. And the job creation for us it's quite interesting, actually. Each one of our farmers is hiring an additional 3 to 5 people per acre to help. So it's the impact goes far beyond just money, just like you said.
Absolutely, and then you have more food for the people in Kenya, and I don't know if y'all are exporting the crop outside of Kenya or not, but you got more food, at least for the population of Kenya. You've got more revenue coming in, better jobs, and so it's a very I think holistic, maybe the right word to look at how y'all doing stuff. Let's just step back here and just set the picture for people who aren't familiar with Kenya and haven't been to Kenya. So if you're not one of these farmers, what would your access to energy be like? And so let's kind of maybe compare and contrast. You've set some monetary numbers, 1 to 14,000. But if you weren't a farmer, you're just an average person out in these rural areas. What is your average day like as far as having access to energy?
So if you're in a rural area in Kenya, there are likely two options for you. You're either connected to the grid or you're not connected to the grid. For those of you that are connected to the grid, one of your major issues is that the grid is unreliable. Actually, a lot of our farmers, and this was a surprise to us as well, a lot of our farmers are on grid. And it's really funny when we have people come and visit, investors come and visit our farmers, we take them out to the farms and there's a power pole right in the middle of their farm. And we look around and we're like, why do they have solar right now? It's not because, the energy is too expensive per se, but just the reliability of the grid is so low that farmers then opt to buy additional solar products. So for many people who are on grid, who have the grid, they buy solar-powered water pumps. They buy solar home systems. Sometimes they go to a hardware store and buy some solar panels for the roof, and they wire them up to some batteries and then to a TV. It's very interesting. And for those who are off-grid, what's becoming very popular are these off-grid products. So solar home systems, solar lights, solar water pumps. And there's a massive push from the private sector and the public sector in the region to get these off-grid products into the hands of these customers who are off-grid. There's been a huge trend in the last maybe eight years. It's been really picking up, where a lot of international organizations have recognized the impact of these off-grid products, and there's development funding coming in for this. So there's been a huge uptick in, one, the availability, and then the two, uptake of these products in the country.
And you mentioned the grid there. I want to focus on that for just a second. One of the things I know is a problem in some countries in Africa, I'm curious about Kenya, is that there's a lack of meters, and so that you can be overcharged for just having access to the grid. And if you're in a poor area in Kenya, that could be devastating to your monthly budget. Is that an issue? The meters is not having good, accurate meters in Kenya. Is that an issue as well?
It's an issue of it's old technology versus new technology, going from analog to digital. So while there are meters, a lot of the discussion now is how do we get the power company in Kenya to switch from old metering to smart meters? How do we go from analog to digital? And that's a massive conversation. It's exactly the reason that you talked about. If there's no reliable meters, people could be undercharged, overcharged. Even collections from the Revenue Authority or collections from the main power company could be much lower because the meters aren't working. So the conversation now is not how do we get meters on the ground, it's how do we switch the meters to meters per se.
Absolutely, I know that's a discussion that's going on all over Africa. Is how do we do this? And what I love is that you take a group like what you guys are doing. You're taking a very capitalistic mindset, and you're not. Sometimes capitalism gets a bad name, and there's plenty of folks who do bad things. But what you guys are doing is you're having a direct impact on the local people there, and you're doing it in a way that helps them. You can make a profit, and everyone's happy. And it seems to be that not only if you're doing it the right way, like you guys are, not only are they making more money, you're making more money, but you're impacting the local people. And I think that that's just a great thing. So I'm really excited about what you guys are doing. Is there a 2.0 to what you guys have? So are you looking to expand outside of the farmers and maybe go to the households, or is this where you're going to stay at?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we're on 4.0 right now. As a small and growing business, we change all the time. But I think the next phase of our business is, when we started the business, it was about how do we prove this technology works? We were the company to commercialize solar irrigation in Africa. So how do we prove that the tech works? How do we prove to everyone else the tech works? The second phase of our business was how do we create a business model that works? So when we started to sell these products, farmers would laugh at us. They said, you guys are trying to sell us solar-powered irrigation. We've never irrigated before. 6% of all African farmers have ever irrigated.
Oh, wow.
So they told us they needed help with installation. They needed training. They needed ongoing agriculture support. They needed after-sales support. So we created the solution that combined high-quality technology with value-added service. We were the first company to commercialize that model. The next phase of the company was how do we figure out how to implement financing? So we partnered with the Shell Foundation and some other of our investors to pilot what we're calling pay-as-you-grow. It's an asset financing platform. The phase we're at now is how do we take that technology, that service model, this financing, and productize it in a nice little box with a bow that we can then export to distributors? How do we get this into more farmers' households? How do we get this into the hands of more people who need this all over the world. And the next phase, and this is getting to the answering your question that you asked, the next phase for us is, how do we continue to serve our farmers? How do we continue to develop income-generating products and services that help our farmers grow? So if we sell you as a farmer solar-powered irrigation and you do really well, how do I help you do even better? Do I expand your farm? Do I give you new products? Do I give you more financing? And a way for us to accurately get that information to be able to develop new products for us is we're developing an IoT platform. We're developing a platform with Microsoft to get real-time data from our farmers' farms and provide them with services in real time that they need, whether that's an SMS to tell them what kind of fertilizer to use, whether that's automated irrigation, or whether that's just getting use case data to make sure that we're continuing to give them the right amount of support and the right level of after-sales support to make sure they do really well. So for us, it's making sure that each one of our farmers have this connected experience so we can then continue to serve them in the future.
Wow, IoT coming to Kenya, that's impressive. That's, what I love about that is I think some of the discussion we've had on the show is, when we look at Africa or other emerging markets, is they don't have to follow the same path as the U.S. or other developed nations. They can skip some of the steps, and it sounds like you guys are kind of skipping some of the steps, going with an IoT type model, and that's great. That's very exciting. One question about regulation there. One of the things I'm curious is, how has the government received this? You said the public sector has been kind of supportive. Is there a fear that they may lose some of their market share, and has there been a little pushback from them?
I mean, the government of Kenya has done a very good job of trying to create regulations that promote the uptake of renewable energy and irrigation products. So their regulations make it that solar products are VAT exempt and so are irrigation systems. So they're trying. Now, of course, regulations aren't perfect, but they're trying to make an investor-friendly environment and a private sector-friendly environment for starting businesses in the country. So that's been very, very helpful. The public sector outside of the local governments have also been very helpful. There are a number of international development finance institutions that have come and put money into businesses to help catalyze the private sector investment into the space, which has been very, very helpful for us. So I don't think that market share will go down. I actually think that market share will increase as the public sector encourages businesses like this to start, which will in turn crowd more investment into the space, which will in turn crowd more familiarity with the products, which will in turn then help us gain more market share and, make the pie bigger, not split the pie up into more pieces.
Well, awesome. This has been a very informative conversation. I love what you guys are doing. You are all over the place. You're on Forbes 30 Under 30, the World Energy Council. You've been all over the world. So let folks know where they can find you, where they can find out more information about your company, and if there are some distributors listening, how can they partner up with you guys?
Thank you very much. All of the awards and accolades are a direct result of the hard work our team does, and at the end of the day, we're here to serve farmers. So we're really proud and very honored and humbled to be able to do this work. For more information on us, you can visit our website, www.sunculture.com. Follow me on Twitter if you'd like to get in touch about distribution. It's at Samir Ibrahim. And we look forward to chatting to anybody who's interested in water, energy, agriculture. How do we use the private sector to catalyze economic development? Thank you so much for having me, Ryan.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. And for the listeners, we will link to all of that information in the show notes so you can find Samir and everything else about his company, SunCulture, as well. So, Samir, thank you so much for coming on. And let's have you on again maybe in a year or so and find out what's changed since we talked today, okay?
I'd love that, Ryan. Thank you so much for having me.
The Global Energy Leaders Podcast is produced by Michael Sims and Chris Prine. Chris Prine also serves as editor for the Global Energy Leaders Podcast. Until next time, keep climbing.
Thanks for listening to the Global Energy Leaders Podcast, powered by R Squared Global.